So good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. Good afternoon. I guess Violet, what time is it in Singapore, Violet? Late. Okay, doesn't matter. Don't worry. You can press, there's a trick we learned, someone told, you can press the space bar to temporarily unmute rather than looking for someone. 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. Okay, it's just after midnight. Nadine is probably, what, Nadine, about 6 o'clock in the evening, something there?
7 o'clock.
7, okay, so not too bad. So let's begin with some prayers that Sheila will put up, are just very simple prayers, refuge and bodhicitta and so forth.
Can you all see that?
Yes. Sangye churang soki chognam la Jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create by listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. This is kind of our motivation, taking refuge in generating bodhicitta. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create by listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all migrating beings. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect Lama, pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guru Radna Mandalakam Niryatayami. So on the basis of that, try to just revivify your motivation for listening to the talk this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are. All living beings have been intimately related with us over numberless lifetimes. And like us, exactly like us, they want to be happy, they want to be free of suffering. And according to their various degrees of skill or understanding, they often create just the causes of suffering rather than the causes of happiness, thinking that stealing and cheating and using harsh language against others will bring them happiness, misunderstanding the law of cause and effect. And they're all bound by the conception of inherent existence, that the way things appear, they believe, is the way they actually are, somehow real and findable and substantial. All of these sentient beings, having been our mothers in numberless lifetimes, our intimate friends, are worthy of our consideration. Just as we want to protect our own parents, would like them to find real happiness and so forth, we can develop that same thought for sentient beings out of compassion for them, which is what we're about to be talking about in our class again. A mind that wishes sentient beings to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. So to enter into listening to the teachings with that kind of motivation, thinking, I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate on the material presented in order that I might eventually be able to alleviate all of their suffering and set them into ultimate happiness. And knowing that the only way to do that, understanding the only way to do that is to ourselves become Buddhas, because only the Buddhas can, without error and with ultimate perfection, lead sentient beings out of suffering into this state of enlightenment. We come to the conclusion, I must, with out of the motivation of compassion for sentient beings to help them, I must become a Buddha. And it's for that reason, in order to become a Buddha, that I'm going to be listening to the talk, the teachings on the Lama Tsongkhapa's great commentary, The Illumination of the Intent, Gompa Rapsal. I'm going to listen, contemplate, meditate in order to become a Buddha, in order to benefit all sentient beings. So, nice to see everyone. A couple of you have come in after just before we started, I asked if people had some questions, but maybe some of the other people who've just come on might have some question left over from before. Anyone? Rachel, you okay? You have any questions? You can press the space.
Good morning,
there.
George. Good morning,
Yeah.
George. I did some reading and I will wait until after the presentation in case they get answered straight away.
Okay, excellent. Oh, Jennifer. Good.
Yes.
Yeah, your hand up.
Uncle George, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just had a question from last time. So the Shravakas take the Four Noble Truths as their paths and don't wish to become enlightened. But the question is, if they were around the Buddha at the time of the Tantrayana, and there's so many advantages to following a bodhisattva or a tantrayana path, in terms of we always hear, if you have bodhicitta, that only further, it purifies obscurations more quickly, it accumulates merit more quickly. Why wouldn't the Shravakas be drawn to the bodhisattva or mantrayana path if it existed at the time
Right.
that they were taught?
So when the Buddha emanated, himself as Vajradhara or Heruka or Yamataka at various times to teach the Tantra path, the Tantrayana, I think it was very unlikely that there were any Shravakas that were present. You never hear about Shravakas in the audience. Usually there are the sharp Bodhisattvas. Why the Shravakas wouldn't be compelled to enter the Mahayana is another question. If you just not talking about Tantra, there were Shravakas present when the Buddha taught the Mahayana, but like the verses that we talked about before, they would hear the teachings and they would even proclaim them to others. This is one of the other etymologies of Shravaka, someone who's heard the Mahayana and then proclaims it to others without practicing it themselves. Because the goal of full enlightenment, samyak sambuddha, fully enlightened Buddha, not just the enlightenment of a hearer or a solitary realizer, because that term bodhi is used for them, right? Their own enlightenment means their own nirvana. The the aim of achieving enlightenment via the Bodhisattva path, they understand may take 3 countless great eons. And just like if you go to a college class today, you know, you know, some people might be very, very content just to get their bachelor's degree, but some, you know, and someone say, well, but if you got your PhD, if you got your master's or your PhD or postdoc, you could make so much more money, you could help so many more people. People, it's just too long, you know.
And they never heard the 3 years part with the tantra yana. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I think that's more or less how it is. Anyone else have a question? Okay, so I've been reminded that we finished last time, and I'm not sure of the page in the whole book, but when we were talking about the Pratika Buddhas. So just finish up that section just to remind you, there were these 2 stanzas that were quoted first from the 400 stanzas by Arya Deva. He who knows suchness, even if he does not attain nirvana in this life, will definitely attain it without effort in other lives, just as in the case of karma. What page is that on? So that people know in the hardbound edition, some of you who are reading it.
Page 39, Venerable George, page 39.
Page 39. So I think we just covered this last time and we're just gone a little beyond that. So the idea here is, even if you don't realize emptiness in this lifetime, if you've studied it, here it says, if you know suchness, that means if you know about emptiness, even if you don't attain nirvana in this life, you will definitely attain it without effort in other lives, just as in the case of karma. So this is talking about mainly talking about the Pratika Buddhas, but also can be applied to the Shravakas because they hear about selflessness of the person, and if they are actually have the fortune to investigate that, they understand that it refers not only to the selflessness of the person, but also to the selflessness of phenomena. This is according to the Prasangika point of view, right? From some of the other lower schools, some say that it's sufficient to achieve their nirvana just by realizing what Prasangika recognizes as the gross selflessness of persons. But Prasangika says that you cannot achieve enlightenment simply by that. You have to realize the emptiness of all phenomena. And so even if they don't actualize their goal in that lifetime, they leave an imprint in their mind of understanding it. So when they are born again and return, and like in the hearer's path, some hearers achieved their nirvana in the very life they heard the teaching from the Buddha, like the disciples, the first disciples of the Buddha surrounding him in Deer Park. Some others achieved nirvana in that lifetime, but not everyone. But they left an imprint in the mind and when they passed away, they had a very strong resolution to continue practicing the future life. So in the future life, maybe the second life, some of them might have achieved their nirvana, or in the third life, those who are more bumbling, struggling along the way, may have taken up to 16 lifetimes. But as the verse says here, he who knows suchness, even if he does not attain nirvana in this life, will definitely attain it without effort in other lives, just as in the case of karma. So the implication here is that if you create karma, that will definitely be experienced. it will remain upon your mind stream until the right conditions occur in the future. And at that point, that karma will ripen. So having heard about emptiness, the Shravakas and the Pratika Buddhas will definitely achieve nirvana in the future. That's kind of the implication of the verse in this context. Then there's another verse from the treatise on the middle way, fundamental wisdom by Nagarjuna. When the fully awakened ones do not appear and the Shravakas are no more, the gnosis of Pratika Buddhas spontaneously arises independently. I think so. Jeffrey translate in the other translation we have in this first section in the Compassion in Tibetan Buddhism. Jeffrey translates that though the perfect Buddhas do not appear and hearers have disappeared, a solitary realizer's wisdom arises without support. Here, Jimpa says independently. So that means without having to, not necessarily hearing again, inculcated that lifetime from the Buddhas, the solitary realizers develop that gnosis, that deep wisdom that realizes emptiness without the support of other teachings. So that we talked about that last time, right? So with regard to the meaning of, in Jimpa's translation, if some say in the commentary, so in other words, in the Madhyamaka Vatara auto commentary, Chandrakirti said, if some say, some assert that this is a response to the following contention. That means some Jayananda, the commentator to Chandrakirti's text, the only Sanskrit commentary that we know of, Jayananda says, this is a response to the following contention, the following, dispute. Since there appear to be some who do not attain the states of Shravaka and Pratika Buddha, even when dependent origination has been revealed to them. This is just talking about what we were just saying before. They've heard the deep meaning of dependent origination, which means the explanation of the logic to understand emptiness. They do not attain the states of Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, that means they're nirvanas, even when dependent origination has been revealed to them. The states of Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha, because of that, the states of Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha would not come to be fully realized through the teaching of dependent origination. So they've heard dependent origination, but they didn't achieve the goal. Someone's contending that that's the reason that Chandrakirti is talking about this. Others, that means other Tibetans at other times, so not just Jayananda is trying to explain this, but other Tibetans had other kinds of interpretations. Others interpret this as a response to the objection, if enlightenment is the fruit of a Buddhist teaching, that means remember when we talk about enlightenment here, it means not just full enlightenment of a Buddha, but means the enlightenment of a hearer or the enlightenment of a Pratyeka Buddha. In that sense, when we talk about enlightenment, it just means their nirvana, right? Others interpret this as a response to the objection, if enlightenment is the fruit of a Buddhist teachings, then this fruit should come about the moment one has put into practice the meaning of the unborn state, unborn nature of dependent origination. You should get it immediately. Well, not just the very moment, but maybe that lifetime. But this is not the case. In other words, some Shravakas take several lifetimes. Pratyeka Buddhas take up to 100 eons to achieve their bodhi, their enlightenment, meaning their final state, their nirvana. But this is not the case. in the future too, it will not produce such a fruit. This is the doubt that some Tibetans said was the cause for Chandrakirti writing about this. These explanations stem from a failure. This is Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary again. These explanations stem from a failure to understand the context. The context here is how sovereign sages, the Munindra, remember that's the name that we give to the Buddhas, the Lord of sages or sovereign sages, or the Muni Indra. The context here is how the sovereign sages produce pratika Buddhas, where there is a greater doubt, and it is this doubt that needs to be addressed with special emphasis. So Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, these other explanations of why Chandrakirti wrote about this are missing the point. Jeffrey Hopkins, at this point, he put at the end, Jimpa says, these commentators have failed to do so. It's a little bit, in the Tibetan, it's a little bit unclear you have to add some words here. It says, the Tibetan is more or less, something has failed to occur. Jeffrey Hopkins translated this as, but according to these explanations, Chandrakirti did not do so. So at any rate, this section is not of so much importance, but like all of these points about the text, there's a lot of debate when you get into the text. So this maybe not the most important thing to delve into. Now, the next section, how the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas. Okay, so we talked about how the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are born, how they arise from the Munindra. They arise from having heard the teaching, so they're sort of like the offspring of the Munindra. They're born from the Buddhas. So the root text says Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas. So the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are born from the Buddhas, and the Buddhas, next question, who are they born from? They're born from the Bodhisattvas. Now, the text says, if Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are born from the sovereign sages, the Munindra, from whom do these sovereign sages come about? What is their genesis? The fully awakened Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas. One might object, are not the Bodhisattvas called the conqueror's children, right? You know that term, conqueror's children? Like in the 37 practices of all the conqueror's children, sometimes we say the 37 practices of the Bodhisattvas, which I taught a couple, maybe last year or so at Shantideva Center, that very nice text. So it's a common expression in the sutras referring to the Bodhisattvas as the conqueror's children or offspring. One might object, are not the Bodhisattvas called the conqueror's children because they too come into being on the basis of what a Buddha revealed to them? Well, maybe that's not exactly right. Since they are the conqueror's children, how can it be that the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas? The father of a son cannot be born to that same son. What do you think? A little bit confused, right? So Lama Tsongkhapa says, it is true, Bodhisattvas are children of the conquerors. They are called the Jina Putra. Jina is another epithet of the Buddha, the conqueror. He who has conquered all of the afflictive emotions and the obstructions to omniscience, the conqueror. since they are the conqueror's children, it is true bodhisattvas are children of the conquerors. Nevertheless, bodhisattvas serve as a cause of Buddhas on two grounds, for two reasons. First, bodhisattvas serve as a cause of the Buddhas through their state of being. Tathagatahood, the state of being a Tathagata, a Buddha, is the fruit of bodhisattvahood. So in other words, having become a bodhisattva and practicing those deeds and so forth, the six perfections and so forth, one will eventually become oneself a Buddha. So bodhisattvas serve as the cause of Buddhas on two grounds. First, the bodhisattvas serve as a cause of Buddhas through their state of being. The state of being a Buddha is the fruit of being a bodhisattva. In other words, all those who have attained the state of Buddhahood have done so on the basis of having first attained the state of a bodhisattva while on the learner's path. What's the learner's path? Remember? Learner's path means that which is where one has entered into the path, become a bodhisattva. Let's say if we're talking about the Mahayana, one has entered into the path, but one is still learning. One has not become, is not graduated. One has not become a Buddha. The state of Buddhahood is called the state of no more learning. When we talk about the different paths, so we say the learner's path and the path of no more learning. Where was I? In other words, those who have attained the state of Buddha have done so on the basis of first attained the state of bodhisattva on the learner's path. Thus, it is through being an indirect substantial cause. And what is that? That of sharing a continuum with a Buddha, that a bodhisattva is here to be the cause of a Buddha. That's pretty simple. It sounds complicated. We say that the bodhisattvas become the cause of a Buddha because they become Buddhas, their own continuum, through their own practice. Could you say that your study in the university becomes the cause of your achieving, professorship? You become a professor. So that's sort of the end goal, maybe one of the end goals, or doing research or something, whatever reason you're getting a degree. So because of that, your state of learning in the university becomes a cause of you becoming a professor eventually. I think it's pretty simple, right? Is it anyone confused about that? Sudip, how are you? Does it make sense?
Why is it called
Venerable.
indirect?
Wait. I asked Sudip first. Sudip?
Venerable, thank you. It makes sense. I think I just wanted a little bit of clarification on this phrase, having first attained the state of the bodhisattva while on the learner's path. Is that speaking specifically about a particular one of the five paths, like the path of accumulation, preparation, path of seeing, or is it talking in general the fact that the bodhisattva has not attained Buddhahood and hence is on the path of meditation? I'm trying to understand what that means precisely.
Yeah, so I'd said this, but would be more precise. So the path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation, collectively are called the learner's path. So it doesn't refer to another, when we talk about the five paths, path of accumulation, preparation, meditation, path of seeing, path of meditation, those four paths are called the learner's path, because the fifth path is called the path of no more learning. You could say like graduation, right? You don't have to learn anything more. So these four that come before are all collectively called the learner's path.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir. And then someone else with that had a question, but I didn't notice who it was. Was it Rachel? Yeah, go on.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't have an understanding of why it's indirect when it seems to me very direct. When you have the state of mind, the continuum of a bodhisattva that becomes the fruit, the Buddhahood. So I don't understand why they call it an indirect substantial cause.
Okay, so a substantial cause, there can be, let's say, what is the substantial cause of a sprout? The substantial cause of a sprout would be, talking about a plant, right? Sprout would be the seed, because the substance of the seed transforms and becomes the sprout, right? So if you talk about something where there's further distance between the substantial cause and the result, like between the seed and the sprout, say, take for instance a table that a carpenter is going to make. What's the substantial cause of the table? You could say the logs of wood in his or her carpentry lab, or whatever you call it, and their place of where they make the things. If you trace back to the tree where the logs came from, that's also a substantial cause, but it's indirect. It's further away than immediately. To make the table, you could say the logs were the substantial cause, because you can see the logs right there. The carpenter is using the various tools to make the table or the chair or whatever. But further along in the continuum of that substantial cause, something, indirectly, the tree itself was the indirect substantial cause. Okay, so on you could say the substantial cause of becoming the Buddha is the last moment. The direct substantial cause is the last moment of the Bodhisattva's continuum. That's directly going to become the state of Buddha. And all of these things before that are kind of indirect substantial causes. Does that help, Rachel?
Okay, so just that very moment before is the direct, and then the bodhisattva continuum is transformed because it's so much further away from Buddhahood.
The early
it's
portions are the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, up until those final moments. All of those are indirect substantial causes, their continuum. And the last moment is the direct substantial cause. So generally we talk about that, the direct cause and the indirect cause. So if you talk about the direct substantial cause, it means just the moments before in terms of the cause that transform and become the result. If you talk about further back, along the continuum, like say, give the example of the carpenter, those are indirect substantial causes. There's still a substantial cause because the Bodhisattva's continuum will eventually be transformed into the state of Buddhahood. So they're the same substance of that, so to speak, but they are further away from the moment of transformation into the event. So they're not the direct substantial cause. Okay, and at that point, I think, okay, Shanka, you have a question? Yeah.
Just the moment before this phrase, I guess, reminded me, is this any way kind of related to, like, in cognition, when they talk about new and valid and new, right? That something to be, is it any way related to that? Because remember, like, the new, it has to be new anything, but if it's not new, then it's not goodness.
Yeah.
Uh,
So if from the lower tenet's point of view, a valid cognizer has to realize its object freshly, newly. For the Prasangika, it doesn't have to be a fresh, a new realization. The example that's given in Lorig, as you recall, is that like a locomotive, like a train. The locomotive, the engine, is the thing that is propelling it forward, and it is the thing that is the primary, kind of like the prime cognition. The subsequent cars are being pulled along by the force of the engine, and therefore they are analogous to the subsequent moments of the realization. But according to the lower tenets, only the first moment is a prime cognizer. That's for the lower philosophical tenets, like the Sautrantika and Vaibhashika and so forth. For the Prasangika, it doesn't have to be a new realization to be a valid cognizer. Valid cognizer, this term pramana, that's the term that's being sometimes translated as valid cognizer or prime cognizer. Prime has various implications. Sometimes it can mean like first, the primary or prime. Prime can also mean best, like prime beef, right? So that's not exactly the same. That's not exactly the same thing that's being talked about here. We're talking about the direct cause and the indirect cause. I think I wasn't sure, was Mikhail, did you have a question when Sundip had a question before?
It was the same as Rachel's, so you answered. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thus, it is through being an indirect substantial cause that the sharing of a continuum of a Buddha, the indirect substantial cause, that of sharing a continuum with a Buddha, that a bodhisattva here is said to be the cause of a Buddha. So, any one of you out there, I'll say Venerable Tendren, she is now the indirect cause of her future Buddhahood, the indirect substantial cause, okay? Second, bodhisattvas serve as a cause of Buddhas in another way. So one way the bodhisattvas become cause of a Buddha because they themselves become Buddha. So they become the indirect substantial cause. Second, bodhisattvas serve as a cause of Buddhas through enabling them to uphold the perfect truth. So how do bodhisattvas progress along the path? They hear the teachings, of course, from the Buddhas sometimes, but also from other bodhisattvas. Here it says, for example, one reads in the sutras about how the bodhisattva Manjushri enabled our teacher and other Buddhas to first uphold the awakening mind. Well, before they were Buddhas, obviously, when they were bodhisattvas, when Shakyamuni was a bodhisattva, when other Buddhas were bodhisattvas, the bodhisattva Manjushri enabled them to uphold the awakening mind, sort of got them into the Mahayana path. Through the behavior, through their teachings and so forth, this establishes how, through serving as the cooperative condition for the Buddhas, whom they do not share the same continuum, the Buddhas whose states are objects of attainment of other bodhisattvas, that bodhisattvas give rise to the Buddhas. So sometimes, let's see here, how Jeffrey says that. in Jeffrey Copland's translation, page starting in the end of 107, Bodhisattvas also cause Buddhas through causing them to bear the truth. Jimpa translated that as uphold the perfect truth, to bear the truth in the sense that, as it says in Sutra, the Venerable Manjushri as a Bodhisattva caused our own teacher, Shakyamuni, and other Buddhas to bear the altruistic mind of enlightenment at the very beginning. This establishes that Buddhas are born from Bodhisattvas from the viewpoint that a Bodhisattva who is of a different continuum from the Buddhahood, which another Bodhisattva will attain, acts as a cooperative cause of the Buddha. A lot of words, but it's kind of simple idea. Nadine, does it make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, very succinct answer. Okay. Ida, how are you doing? Does it make sense?
Yes, Venerable, it does.
Okay. Did someone put their hand up? Oh, Richard.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's meant here by uphold, bear the truth.
So let's say the Bodhisattva Manjushri was a teacher of Lama Tsong, right? In the sense that he had a direct, well, let's say not just we would say he was actually had a direct vision of Manjushri, who was actually Buddha, but taking the aspect of a Bodhisattva, right? When we say the Bodhisattva Manjushri, it means, it can mean the Buddha Manjushri, which, well, so what is the Buddha Manjushri? The definitive Manjushri is the direct realization of emptiness. That's the definitive Manjushri. The interpretive Manjushri is say the appearance of a bodhisattva as a deity, or say the bodhisattva Manjushri who is in the retinue of Buddha Shakyamuni, right? Buddha Shakyamuni had 8 great important bodhisattvas. You know who they are, right? You know who they are? Who are they, Richard?
More or less, I can't recite them from memory, but I know what you're talking about.
So if you practice the Guhya Samaja Tantra, they talk about the 8 bodhisattvas. So at any rate, Manjushri is one of those great bodhisattva disciples. Some people say that all of these disciples, all of these great bodhisattvas were actually emanations of Shakyamuni, but whatever the case. So when Shakyamuni was a learner, before he achieved enlightenment, he was instructed by emanations of Manjushri as a bodhisattva through teachings and behavior. So for instance, the bodhisattva might show giving to others to inculcate that behavior in his disciple. He might give his own body. He might actually teach about the path and so forth. Here it's talking about, for example, one reads in the sutras about how the Bodhisattva Manjushri enabled our teacher and other Buddhas to first uphold the awakening mind. So that is the first step in becoming a bodhisattva, to uphold, to hold the awakening mind, to hold bodhicitta. So this establishes how, through serving as the cooperative condition for the Buddhas. So let's say someone who's going to become a Buddha, it's just like saying that the seed that's going to become the sprout. What is the cooperative conditions for that seed? Well, the substantial cause of the future sprout is the seed, right? That's the direct substantial cause. Cooperative cause would mean sunlight, moisture, fertilization, all of these kind of factors are called cooperative causes. They're generally, we can say there are different kinds of causes. We can say cooperative causes and substantial causes. Substantial causes are causes that the substance of which becomes the result. Like say your present mind stream is a substantial cause of your future dharmakaya, right? Your present mind stream. Substantial, the cooperative causes of a sprout becoming of a seed becoming a sprout are things that are necessary for it to grow, but don't become that their very substance is not necessarily the substance of the end result. So the moisture, you might say some of the moisture might end up in the substance of the sprout, but it's necessary as a cooperative condition for the seed to transform into the sprout, right? So this establishes how through serving as the cooperative condition for the Buddhas, with whom they do not share the same continuum. So you have one future Buddha, still a bodhisattva. Another bodhisattva is teaching them and extolling them to practice the bodhicitta. The Buddhas whose states are objects of attainment of other bodhisattvas give birth to the Buddhas. How does Jeffrey say? This establishes that Buddhas are born from bodhisattvas from the viewpoint that a bodhisattva who is of a different continuum from the Buddhahood which another bodhisattva will attain acts as the cooperative cause of that Buddha. So there's two ways that the bodhisattvas are said to be the cause of the Buddhas. Venerable Tendra.
Yes. Did I hear you say that the interpretive Manjushri is the bodhisattva aspect, modeling the appropriate behaviors? Did I get that right?
Right. So definitive Manjushri means the actual wisdom of emptiness. The interpretive, when we talk about Manjushri, we often think of a deity or the bodhisattva Manjushri, which is a manifestation of that wisdom on the conventional level. So yeah. Does that make sense? Paul, you seem to be have some doubt. No? Okay, it's okay. Okay. Karen, you okay? Okay. Yeah, okay. I can't tell. Donnie Min. Amy's iPad Krantz. Amy Krantz? Is that Amy Krantz? Okay. So, question. When the opponent objects, since bodhisattvas are the conqueror's children, it would be correct to say that bodhisattvas are born from the conquerors, right? We talk about bodhisattvas as the conqueror's children, the Jina Putra, right? The offspring of the Jina conqueror. But to assert the opposite would be illogical, someone thinks. What does that mean? The author himself indicates that he admits the premise, writing, "It is true, bodhisattvas are children of the conquerors. In that situation, one needs to give reasons why, despite accepting the premise that there is no contradiction in saying Buddhas are born from the bodhisattvas." It's a little bit, someone's a little bit trying to be tricky here. The bodhisattvas are said to be the sons of the Buddha, the children of the Buddha, right? It's not exactly because they are, what did we say here? That they are born from the conquerors. But to assert the opposite would be illogical. It is true bodhisattvas are children of the conquerors. In that situation, one needs to give reasons why, despite accepting the premise that bodhisattvas are sons of the Buddhas, there is no contradiction in saying Buddhas are born from the bodhisattvas. What's he getting at here? It's like just in the world, if someone is a son of a father, right? They cannot become the father of that father. It is insufficient to simply provide reasons proving that Buddhas are born from the bodhisattvas. For even if such proofs are presented, the doubt raised earlier would remain unresolved. The Lama Tsong says, no problem. Such a fault does not arise. The meaning of the root text statements that Buddhas are born from bodhisattvas is this. In the first reason, that on the basis of undertaking the practice of the path, the bodhisattva on the learner's stage, or the learner's path, that what Richard was asking about before, who's on the learner's stage or learner's path, that on the basis of undertaking the practice of the path, the bodhisattva on the learner's stage attains the fruit of Buddhahood. One understands that such a bodhisattva is not the child of the Buddha he will attain. Right? He's not the child of the Buddha that he is the. He is said to be the son of the Buddha or child of the Buddha in the sense of a Buddha of a different continuum. He's not the son of the Buddha that he himself or she herself will attain. One understands that such a Buddha is not the child of the Buddha he will become. So how can it be the case that the author, Chandrakirti, is saying through this, though this is true, a little bit. Let me read what Jeffrey, sometimes the way that Thupten Jinpa translates, if you have the right mindset, you can understand what he's saying. Sometimes Jeffrey's translation I find a little more comprehensible. He says, there's no fault. With respect to the first reason why the root text says that Buddhas are born from bodhisattvas, Chandrakirti explains the attainment of the proof, the fruit of Buddhahood through a bodhisattva's practice on the path of learning. Right? So bodhisattva becomes the Buddha. Hence, when Chandrakirti says that it is true, that this is true, meaning bodhisattvas are indeed born from Buddhas, how could he be referring to a bodhisattva's birth from a Buddha that he becomes? How could he, he doesn't mean that. Furthermore, one newly born as a bodhisattva from the speech of our teacher is a child of that Buddha, of this Buddha that he heard the teachings from. But this Buddha is not born from the bodhisattva. Indeed, if one has intelligence, why would one not realize from the answer given in the commentary that the objector has not distinguished between these two modes? Still, many senseless explanations have appeared with respect to this. So, what do you think? Making sense? Bodhisattvas are, the Buddhas are born from the bodhisattvas in two ways. The Buddha that will, the bodhisattva that was the previous continuum of that Buddha is born from them as the indirect substantial cause. And they are born from the bodhisattvas in the sense that the Bodhisattvas, just like the Muni teaches the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, so that the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are born from the Muni. In the same way, the Muni teaches the Bodhisattvas, and other Bodhisattvas, like the Bodhisattva Manjushri, teaches the Bodhisattvas to uphold the Bodhisattva practices, to uphold the Bodhichitta, and so forth. So they become the cooperative cause of that Bodhisattva becoming Buddha. That's pretty clear, right? Anyone have doubt about that? Diana, are you okay? Does that make sense? Maybe you're off making a cup of tea. How about Anne Yoshinaga? Is that making sense? Pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So going back to Jimpa's translation, so how can it be the case that the author is saying, though this is true to that, furthermore, although the Bodhisattva who is freshly born from our teacher's sacred words is a child of the Buddha, it is not the case that the Buddha came to be born from such a Bodhisattva. The Buddha who taught the Bodhisattva, in the same way that he taught the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, and they are said to be born from him. How could it be said that that Buddha who taught them, like say Shakyamuni, came to be born from the Bodhisattva? He was born from a different Bodhisattva. He was born from the Bodhisattva which was his previous continuum, the previous continuum of Shakyamuni Buddha. He was born from other Bodhisattvas like Manjushri, who along the path caused him to uphold the Bodhichitta and so forth. One thing I always found interesting about Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche often in the early days, took the aspect of being kind of like the Bodhisattva Manjushri. And Lama Yeshe took sort of the aspect of being the fully enlightened Buddha, interesting, but Lama Zopa Rinpoche always taught, taking the aspect of Manjushri, always taught about bodhicitta, because knowing in a sense that the only way to become a Buddha is by first developing bodhicitta and so forth. Lama Yeshe took the aspect of always talking about emptiness. So there's some interesting kind of parallels there. The objection thus trades upon not distinguishing these two different contexts to which the commentary has responded. So why, if one possesses some intelligence, does one not understand this on the basis of Chandrakirti's own commentary? Be that as it may, it seems that numerous pointless explanations have emerged in response to this question. So the statement is pretty simple. The Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas in these two ways, right? As the Bodhisattva is the substantial cause of yourself becoming Buddha, and the Bodhisattva that is a cooperative cause of a Bodhisattva on his or her quest to becoming Buddha. Okay, because Bodhisattvas are a principal cause of the Buddhas, for this reason alone, the Buddhas eulogize the Bodhisattvas. They praise the Bodhisattvas, right? They are the principal cause of the Buddhas. This is how one should read. There are four grounds for such praise, for such eulogizing. You know what eulogy means, right? Is eulogy only given at a funeral? I saw Amy there for a minute. Amy Kranz. You back? Hi, Amy. Long time no see. I stayed in Amy's apartment once in New York City when with Diana's help, she gave me a place to stay when the Dalai Lama was teaching. Do you remember that? Maybe you don't. Okay. Anyway, I'm the same one. There are 4 grounds for this praise of the Bodhisattvas. It is so because the perfect cause of Buddhahood is most profound. It is extremely precious. The perfect cause of Buddhahood. So Buddhahood, of course, is precious and profound. So the cause of it is precious and profound, the Bodhisattva. 2, it is understood that by offering salutation to the Bodhisattva, which is the cause of Buddhahood, one implicitly offers salutation to the resultant Buddha as well. Makes sense? By praising the cause, you indirectly also praise the result. 3, just as when one sees the young sprout with its main stalk and so forth of a medicinal tree that could produce desired fruits, one nurtures the plant with special care during its sapling stage, with its tender leaves. One must cherish with care and nurture with great effort a bodhisattva on the beginner stage who represents the sprout that could bring forth the tree of Buddha as a wellspring of relief for all beings. So you're trying to have a medicinal garden which will give rise to medicines which will bring relief to so many people. So when the first sprouts come up of those plants, even though they're not yet able to give that result, they can't act necessarily as medicine at that point, one nurtures them carefully during the sapling stage with its tender leaves. It's very delicate. You have to be careful. One must cherish with care and nurture with great effort a bodhisattva on the beginner stage who represents the sprout that could bring forth the tree of a Buddha as a wellspring of relief for all beings. Make sense? Okay. Finally, 4th, it is to help sustain those who happen to be in the vicinity when this praise of the bodhisattvas, when extolments of the bodhisattvas are being uttered and have already been placed among the 3 vehicles to definitely connect them with the great vehicle alone. Jeffrey translates that 4th one. The 4th reason is that when bodhisattvas are praised in the presence of those who are established in the 3 vehicles, so that means people who are already on the Shravaka path, the Pratika Buddha path, or the Bodhisattva path, or vehicle, such persons thereby definitely enter into the Mahayana. So by praising the Bodhisattvas, eventually Shravakas will enter into the Mahayana, not necessarily in that life. There are different kinds of Shravakas. Some Shravakas of definite lineage, some Shravakas of indefinite lineage. That means they can change. So of those Shravakas that are of indefinite lineage, having heard the praise of the Bodhisattvas, they may, enter into the Mahayana path. It's all pretty clear. It's just sometimes the words, the way that it translated into English sometimes gets a little bit complicated. So it says, for example, in the Heap of Jewels Sutra, the Ratnakutra, Kashapya, it is thus. So this is Buddha Shakyamuni talking to Kashapya. For instance, one pays homage to the new moon, but not to the full moon. Is that true? Oh, you get excited, you say, when it's after the moon has become less and less, it's dark, you have no moon at all, the first crescent, you get excited. Oh, so you pay praise to that. For instance, one pays homage to the new moon, but not to the full moon. Likewise, Kashyapya, those who thoroughly revere me should pay homage to the Bodhisattvas, but not so to the Tathagatas. Kashyapya, those who thoroughly revere me should pay homage to the Bodhisattvas, but not so to the Tathagatas. Why? It is from the Bodhisattvas that the Tathagatas emerge, and all the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas emerge from the Tathagatas. So the Bodhisattva is a special character, right? The Bodhisattva is something to be excited about. The above citation establishes by means of scriptural authority how the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas, while the two reasons stated earlier establish it through reasoning. So oftentimes when we talk about the understanding of the path, especially about emptiness, we talk about scriptural citations and logical reasonings. So even in trying to understand emptiness, there are logical reasons like the 4-point analysis and so forth that can establish emptiness, right? Those are talk about reasonings. But also to supplement that, maybe even in place of that, in some cases when you can't understand the reasoning, are scriptural citations that talk about emptiness. In this case also, when we talk about why the Bodhisattvas are causes of the Buddhas, there are logical reasonings, talking about that the Bodhisattva becomes a substantial cause of his or her future Buddhahood, and the Bodhisattva acts as one Bodhisattva, like Manjushri, acts as a cooperative cause to cause another Bodhisattva to uphold the path and achieve Buddhahood. So those are logical reasons. Here's a scriptural reason that the Buddha himself said that if you revere me, if you revere the Buddha, the Tathagata, you should pay homage to the Bodhisattvas, because it is from the Bodhisattvas that the Tathagatas emerge, and all the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddhas emerge from the Tathagatas. So Bodhisattvas worthy of great praise. The above citation establishes by means of scriptural authority how the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas, while the two reasons stated earlier establish it through reasoning. Therefore, the reason no direct salutation is offered to the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas, famed as objects of salutation elsewhere, is because a salutation is offered here to their root cause. What's their root cause? Anyone? Amy, what's their root cause? Mm-hmm. You press your space bar, you can temper it. There you go.
Bodhisattva.
Oh, no, their root cause is great compassion. It's sort of getting, yeah. So in this light, although it is on the basis of what is taught in the Buddhas that the Bodhisattvas are born, it is not necessary to explain the line, Buddhas are born in exactly the same manner as the birth of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. The significance of demonstrating how these two are born from the Munindra, the sovereign sages, is to show how, when traced to their source, even the roots of these two are connected to compassion. How the root of the Bodhisattva connects to compassion is explained separately. Right? Did I skip some lines there? Therefore, the reason no direct salutation is offered to the Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas. At the beginning of the text, it says homage to great compassion. That's what it's talking about here. In the verse, it's talking about the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas are born from the Buddhas. the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas. And now we're going to start talking about from what the Bodhisattvas are born. We say from whom, we say from what. And the reason these four categories of persons are shown in their respective sequence in the two lines, Shravakas and middle-level Buddhas are born from the Buddhas are born from Bodhisattvas. The reason that these four categories of persons are shown in their respective sequence as causes and effects is to help to identify what constitute their final root cause. The cause of the Shravakas and Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are the Buddhas. The cause of the Buddhas are the Bodhisattvas. So those are four different kinds of persons, right? Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. What's the root cause of all four of them? Is compassion. In this light, although it is on the basis of what is taught by the Buddhas that the Bodhisattvas are born, it is not necessary to explain the line, Buddhas are born in exactly the same manner as the birth of Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. The significance of demonstrating how these two are born from sovereign sages is to show, when traced to their source, even the roots of these two are connected to compassion. Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. How the root of the Bodhisattva connects to compassion is explained separately. So that's what we're starting now. Now, we said the Bodhisattvas are born from these three special causes. They're called the three dharmas in this context. Very famous, these three causes. Reading further under the heading, the three principal causes of Bodhisattvas, the compassionate mind, non-dual cognition, as well as the awakening mind. These are causes of the Bodhisattvas. This is Chandrakirti's statement, right? These are the three causes of the Bodhisattvas. So although you could say the Bodhisattvas are born from the Buddhas, they're taught by the Buddhas. Here it's talking about their fundamental cause. The compassionate mind, that means great compassion. Non-dual cognition means the realization of emptiness, and that will be explained why it's called non-dual. And the awakening mind, bodhicitta. These are the causes of the Bodhisattvas. So what do you think? Is bodhicitta a cause of the Bodhisattva? Richard, yeah, you think so? Who can I ask? Diana, is bodhicitta a cause of the Bodhisattva?
Yes, it is. Sorry, I was taking notes.
Oh, okay. You're thinking it. But Diana, is bodhicitta a cause of the Bodhisattvas?
Yes, because it's one of the three fundamental causes of the Bodhisattvas and therefore of all of the Buddhas.
Okay. Yeah, we got two Dianas. I was thinking of Diana Weddington. Diana, is bodhicitta a cause of the Buddhas?
Yes. Yes.
Good short answer. Yeah. So do causes occur before or after their results, or at the same time as their results? Diana Weddington.
Oh, before.
So bodhicitta comes, if it were a cause, if fully qualified bodhicitta was a cause of the Bodhisattvas, it would have to occur before the Bodhisattva, right?
Okay, now I'm not sure.
But actual bodhicitta, spontaneous bodhicitta, which defines being a bodhisattva, when you achieve spontaneous bodhicitta, you are a bodhisattva at the same instant. So it doesn't come before. So the bodhicitta that's talked about here, the awakening mind that's talked about here, must be different than that fully, what do we say, spontaneous bodhicitta. We'll see as we go along. Non-dual cognition, that means realization of emptiness. That's the cause of the bodhisattva. Do all bodhisattvas have a realization of emptiness before they become bodhisattvas? David? What do you think? You can press your space bar to unmute.
Sorry, it was I was hovering over the PDF. I would say no, but it's probably like bodhicitta. Maybe it can be a simultaneous thing.
So some bodhisattvas, like those of we talk about followers of faith and followers of reasoning. We talk about the dull and sharp bodhisattvas. Actually, compared to us, probably all bodhisattvas, even the dull ones, are sharper than we are. But those of dull faculties, when we talk about dull faculties, there are different kinds of faculties: wisdom, concentration, mindfulness, and so forth. Mainly what we're talking about is wisdom. Those of lesser wisdom do not realize emptiness before developing bodhicitta. But those of sharp intellect, who are called followers of reasoning, they do realize emptiness first, and as a result of that, they're able to develop bodhicitta more quickly through equalizing and exchanging self with others. Realizing that there's no real self, the way that it appears to us, they have the courage to equalize and exchange themselves with others, work for the others' welfare more than for themselves. So there's some caveats here. When we talk about the three principal causes of bodhisattvas, the compassionate mind, non-dual cognition, as well as the awakening mind. These are the causes of bodhisattvas. So commentary says, now, if Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas are born from the Munindra, from the Buddhas, the sovereign sages, and the sages, the Munis, are born from the Bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, the Buddhas are born from the Bodhisattvas, then what are the causes of those Bodhisattvas? Okay, you could say it's the Buddhas, but here it says the compassionate mind, which will be explained below. So here, when it's talking about the compassionate mind, it means great compassion. The wisdom or cognition that realizes non-dual truth, or freedom from the dichotomy of extremes of thingness and no-thingness, and so on, as well as the awakening mind, the bodhicitta. These three are the primary causes of bodhisattvas who are children of the conquerors. So what is this statement here? It says, freedom from the dichotomy of extremes of thingness and no-thingness. It will come again later, but when we talk about non-dual, there are different meanings of non-duality. Sometimes people, the term is used to refer to, say, single-pointed concentration. Like, say, if you're meditating on an image of the Buddha, and the sense of the observer and the object observed disappears, and it's as though you are merged with the object of contemplation, right? When you're meditating on, say, Shakyamuni Buddha in front. At first, it's as though you are the observer and there's the object observed. Later, the mind fuses with the object, and there's no longer that sense of duality between the observer and the observed. That's not the meaning of non-duality here. Jeffrey Hopkins says, a compassionate mind which will be explained in the following stanzas. A wisdom realizing the meaning of freedom from the two extremes with regard to things, non-things, and so forth, and an altruistic mind of enlightenment. So he takes it in a different way. Here it's, Thupten Jinpa takes it, freedom from the dichotomy of extremes of thingness and no thingness. What does that mean? When we talk about the middle way, right? The Madhyamaka, Madhyamaka, the middle way. It means the middle way between extremes. When one extreme is accepting things as being the way that they appear as inherently existent. That's not that's not the middle way. That, accepting that things are exist the way that they appear. Other extreme is that thinking that things do not exist at all. If you talk about emptiness, you think the emptiness means that things do not exist at all. So here, when it talks about thingness and no thingness, it's kind of terminology in the Madhyamaka literature. When we talk about ngopo dang ngopo mepa la sokpe tani su mepa, means the non-existence of a duality of things and no things. Ngopo means things that appear to be inherently existent, and one assents to that. Ngopo mepa, here he says no thingness. That means that there are no things at all, sort of non-existence. Sudip, you have a question?
Venerable, in terms of the three sort of factors, the compassionate mind, the wisdom realizing emptiness, and the awakening mind of bodhicitta, isn't the compassionate mind a necessary prerequisite of bodhicitta? So why call it out separately?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So even when one has bodhicitta, as we will see in great detail later on, great compassion is necessary at the beginning in order to develop bodhicitta, to enter into the Mahayana path. It's necessary in the middle to sustain the practice. It's necessary at the end for the high level bodhisattvas to continue. They're even reminded by the Buddhas to be compassionate, to generate merit for their achievement. So they'll all be related in some way like that. So it's the root cause of if you talk about the 7 methods of cause and effect, we say that great compassion is one of the causes of bodhicitta, right?
Right. So in this case, is it strictly necessary to I'm just logically speaking, if one has developed bodhicitta, then one necessarily has great compassion, right? So I can understand it. I can understand the mention of great compassion as a further elaboration. But I'm just wondering if it logically is strictly necessary, because you cannot have bodhicitta if you don't have great compassion.
Right, but one has to also cultivate that, because even if you have bodhicitta aiming for enlightenment, one of the factors of bodhicitta is out of concern for sentient beings, out of compassion for sentient beings. If that compassion begins to subside, you don't progress along the path. We'll see in more detail. These are all good questions. Mintu, you have a question.
Yeah, I have a question about compassion as well. So, in the 6 perfection, 6 transcendence, 6 parameters, compassion was not mentioned at one of the 6.
Right.
And bodhicitta wasn't mentioned as one of the 6. So,
right.
Yeah. So why is it the case? Isn't that the whole practice of, Bodhisattva used to be compassionate? So why there's no perfections of compassions?
Because they are, those are the underlying factors that are necessary, great compassion and bodhicitta. Once one has developed bodhicitta, unless one engages in the bodhisattva activities, one won't be able to achieve one's goal of Buddhahood, right? So the bodhicitta is the thought to achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. Even though you have bodhicitta, if it's not engaging bodhicitta, which is engaging in the bodhisattva's activities, you won't achieve that goal. So the 6 perfections, or if you call it the 10 perfections, are the bodhisattva's activities having developed bodhicitta, like in the various prayers that we say Konchuk Sumla Da Kepchi, say Konchuk Sumla Ningne Kepsuchi, Drokun Tun Dungdel Dender Gobaja. I take heartful refuge to the 3 jewels. I will Drokun Dungdel Tender Gobaja. I will separate migrators from suffering and place them into stable bliss. This is sort of like the motivation of bodhicitta. Dele Zokjang Topchir Jangshub Sem Kene Gelse Chubagi. This is from the short 6-session yoga that's recited by people many times. So it says, for that purpose, in order to separate sentient beings from suffering and place them in bliss, Dzogchen Topchir, in order to achieve supreme enlightenment, for that purpose, I will engage in the Bodhisattva's activities, in the deeds of the conqueror's sons. So the 6 perfections, or if you elaborate to 10 perfections, are the ways to bring about the aim of bodhicitta and great compassion. Okay, they're called the activities of the Bodhisattvas. Okay. Yeah. So in the text here, when he's talking about non-dual truth, he says, or in other words, freedom from the dichotomy of the extremes of thingness and no thingness. That means the dichotomy, which is not the middle way, the 2 extremes of nothing existing at all or things really existing the way that they appear. Those are the extremes that one tries to avoid in realizing emptiness. Things do appear, but they don't exist the way that they appear. They're not totally non-existent. They do exist conventionally. So the commentary, continuing, the commentary states that the awakening mind, bodhicitta, referred to here, is as presented in a passage it cites from a sutra. The sutra reads, having realized the suchness of one's own reality, and actually the Tibetan doesn't agree with Chimpa's translation here. He says, having realized the suchness of one's own reality, it should, I think, read one, instead of one's own, one realizes the suchness of phenomena. So having oneself realized the suchness of phenomena doesn't necessarily mean the suchness of one's own reality. Having oneself realized the suchness, one generates the mind with a thought, I will help sentient beings realize this ultimate nature of things. And this is called awakening mind. This is a citation from Sutra. Let's see. I'm not sure where that, maybe in my text, I can't see exactly. One realizes such a, oh, so this,
Venerable, it's from Perfectly Gathering the Teachings Sutra,
yeah,
according to the
So,
notes.
right. So in Jeffrey Hopkins' translation, he says the Omnipresent Doctrine Sutra, which is not correct. It's the, as you said, and if I press on this, I'm not sure I can get back to this page. This is the, what does it say?
Perfectly Gathering the Teachings
No,
Sutra.
the Sanskrit.
Dharma Samgiti Sutra.
Right. So Samgiti means compendium, and compendium of Dharma. So this is a sutra that says that having oneself realized emptiness, one generates the mind with the thought, I will help sentient beings realize this ultimate nature of things. This is called awakening mind. This citation focuses on only one aspect of the objective of the awakening mind, of bodhicitta. Remember when we talked about bodhicitta before, when I gave you that verse to memorize? Some of you memorized maybe. Semke pani shendon chir, yangdak zokbe jangshub de. And if you went to the Facebook page, you would hear Shanka's correct pronunciation of the Sanskrit of that verse, remember? So what does that mean? Semke pani. Semke is a synonym of bodhicitta, means mind generation, generating the mind to achieve enlightenment. Semke pani. What is bodhicitta? Bodhicitta is semke pani shendon chir, for the benefit of others, yangdak zokbe jangchub de, to desire to achieve highest enlightenment. So there are two factors of bodhicitta. One is motivated out of compassion, as one of you were talking about before, maybe Richard or someone, motivated out of compassion to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings. And knowing that one can actually bring about your wish to alleviate their suffering, unless you become an actual Buddha, you can do something. You can give charity, you can help, you can give teachings, but until you become a Buddha, you can't without error lead sentient beings in the most efficient way. In fact, sometimes you may make tremendous errors, without omniscient mind, you may make big errors in trying to lead sentient beings. So there's two objectives. One is to achieve enlightenment. The other is the objective of alleviating the suffering of sentient beings. So this citation, as the text says, focuses on only one aspect of the objective of the awakening mind. And so what is presented here does not complete its definition, doesn't give the full definition of bodhicitta. You might get the idea that bodhicitta is to achieve, I will help sentient beings realize the ultimate nature of things. So that would mean, what objective is that aiming at? Doris, what is that explicitly saying there?
You caught me daydreaming.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
I was moving. Sorry.
So in this verse where it says, having oneself realized suchness of reality, the ultimate truth. You've realized that one generates the mind with the thought, I will help sentient beings realize this ultimate nature of things. This is called bodhicitta. So what is that? What is that mind? What is that statement talking about? I will help sentient beings. You have to press your space bar, Doris, to answer. I will help sentient beings realize this ultimate nature.
I'm sorry, what is the question, Venerable?
So that quotation, that citation,
right,
as the commentary says just afterwards, focuses on only one aspect of the objective of the awakening mind. So it doesn't fulfill the complete definition of bodhicitta. What factor is that focusing on? Is it focusing on, trying to alleviate the suffering of sentient beings, or is it focusing on the aim to achieve enlightenment?
In this case, I'm thinking it's the former, and you need to realize enlightenment in order to be the most benefit.
Yeah, so here it's saying, I will help sentient beings realize the ultimate nature of things. This is a great, in the Nyingma and some other traditions, they say you don't have to make a special effort to develop bodhicitta. That's simply realizing emptiness. When you realize the import of emptiness, and then you think to really help others, I can teach this to others because that will alleviate their suffering. This is talking about the motive of compassion. It doesn't complete this. That citation doesn't complete the definition of bodhicitta. Also, one reads in the commentary. That means Chandrakirti's commentary, his auto commentary to the root verses. One should definitely generate the mind with the thought, I will rescue the entire world from suffering and definitely connect them to Buddhahood. Right? So this is, again, talking about just one factor. Here too, because it does not mention awakening itself, the object of attainment. It doesn't talk about the achievement of Buddhahood. It's only a partial definition. It's only a partial definition. Therefore, the commentary clearly states when showing how the awakening mind arises in dependence on compassion, that such a mind focuses on the object of attainment, awakening itself. It says, the awakening mind aspires to perfectly attain this Buddhahood alone, which is the cause from which emerges both the excellent taste of the ambrosia of sublime Dharma, characterized by the cessation of all distorted conceptualizations, and the one who embodies the true friendship of all beings. So that's the other part of bodhicitta, thinking I must achieve Buddhahood alone. We'll talk about this again next time. In light of this, the following should be accepted as the full definition of awakening mind. It is a wish to attain unsurpassed enlightenment, the object of attainment, for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's an intended objective. So that fits with the verse that some of you memorized before. Bodhicitta, or mind generation, is the wish for full enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. Okay, so any questions? What I would suggest in the coming week to read the next few pages, to go back over that which we have talked about today and try to make things comfortable. See that you can see everything, as it is intended to be, what the text is actually saying. Don't leave any sections so you say, oh, that's too complicated. Don't want to deal with that. See if you can actually understand what's being said, and read this section here where it's talking about these three fundamental causes of the Bodhisattva. And we will talk about that next time. Any last question before we have dedication? Venerable Tendra.
Yeah, I want to just clarify in my mind. Okay, we use the term bodhisattva, at the beginning of the path of accumulation, don't we? That on the Mahayana path. If someone has achieved the path of accumulation on the Mahayana path, we refer to them as a bodhisattva. They're not an Arya bodhisattva yet until the path of seeing, correct?
Right.
And so to achieve that name of bodhisattva, they have to have achieved uncontrived bodhicitta, spontaneous bodhicitta, but that can be developed from karma abiding, not the ultimate bodhicitta that can only come with the path of seeing. Is that, am I remembering that wrong?
Right. So when we, in the terminology, when we talk about ultimate bodhicitta, that refers to realization of the ultimate, that means emptiness, within the continuum of someone who has conventional bodhicitta. So that would only occur on the path of seeing, when one has the direct realization of emptiness. One achieves ultimate bodhicitta. So one would achieve conventional bodhicitta before one achieves ultimate bodhicitta. But one of the more perplexing questions here is how bodhicitta is a cause of the bodhisattvas. Here, as we'll see, this bodhicitta that's mentioned as a cause of the bodhisattva means the contrived bodhicitta, as you refer to uncontrived bodhicitta. So spontaneous bodhicitta. Spontaneous bodhicitta is a defining characteristic of the bodhisattva. Once you've meditated on bodhicitta, using reasonings and effort and contriving your mind, and you actually develop the thought, I must become Buddha for the sake of sentient beings, that's called bodhicitta, but it's contrived bodhicitta. It's only through familiarizing oneself with that one develops the uncontrived bodhicitta, spontaneous bodhicitta, that is present in your mind all the time without thinking of reasons. Okay.
Do you have to realize emptiness for that first, for that to happen? No. Okay, good.
No. I mean, the bodhisattvas of dull faculties, or let's say lesser faculties, actually says dulwa in Tibetan, which does mean dull, but it almost sounds like they're dullards or something like this. Compared to other bodhisattvas, they're dull. They're not the sharpest knife in the drawer or something like this. They develop bodhicitta through the 7 methods of cause and effect, recalling, recognizing that all sentient beings have been their mother and so forth. So it's on the basis of that, without necessarily realizing emptiness, that they develop bodhicitta. But probably many, even of those, have some realization of emptiness, not enough to encourage them to practice the equalizing and exchanging self and others. Why would that be useful even to the practitioners, the bodhisattva, proto-bodhisattvas of dull faculties? Because in order to ascertain that enlightenment is possible, rather than just having faith that enlightenment is possible, in order to realize that enlightenment is possible, one has to have a realization of emptiness. So some of them just go on faith alone and they develop bodhicitta, and then subsequently realize emptiness during the path of accumulation. And when they enter into the path of preparation, all of the bodhisattvas will have a union of calm abiding and tranquil and calm abiding and penetrative insight, realizing the concept, having a conceptual understanding of emptiness. It's only at the time of path of seeing when that conceptual realization of emptiness becomes a direct realization that would be called ultimate bodhicitta.
Thank you.
Okay, Paul.
Venerable George, thank you. I just wanted to follow up on something that you said earlier. I thought you said that if someone realized emptiness, it could enable them to develop bodhicitta quicker. Is that something you said? Because I
Yes.
have this vague recollection that I thought somewhere it said that individuals who realize emptiness before generating bodhicitta have a more difficult time to generate bodhicitta. Or am I misremembering that?
Maybe. Usually it's said like this. There are two main methods to develop bodhicitta. One that came down from Maitreya, which is the 7 methods of cause and effect. Recognizing all sentient beings have been your mother, remembering their kindness, developing a wish to repay their kindness, heartwarming love, which is not full-fledged love, but it's affectionate love, great compassion, laksam, we say how does the Dalai Lama call it? Universal responsibility, you might say, or special wish. I will do it myself. And then as a result of that, bodhicitta. So the 6 causes and 1 result. We say the 7 factors of cause and result. 6 of them are causes, 1 is result. Those are especially effective for beings, all beings, but especially for the main method of those of dull faculties, the proto-bodhisattvas of dull faculties. When I say proto-bodhisattvas, they're not yet bodhisattvas. They're aspiring to become bodhisattvas, right? They want to develop bodhicitta, so they use that method. The other method that was passed down from Manjushri to Nagarjuna, Shantideva, and so forth involves equalizing and exchanging oneself with others. And to realize that, to be able to practice that, one has to have an insight into emptiness, that the person that you are cherishing as most important now, oneself, is an illusion, that it is you're cherishing it on the basis of grasping it to be truly existent, inherently existent. And if you realize that the self is not inherently existent, you can imagine imputing self on the entirety of sentient beings. Like just like now you impute self on your hands, your arms, your body, your head, your legs, your feet, and everything. You can impute self on the limbs of limitless sentient beings and work for their welfare. So that is said to be a quicker way to develop bodhicitta if you have that realization of emptiness. So it is more suitable for the aspirants, the aspiring bodhisattvas. It is more suitable for those of sharper intellect who have the patience to reason and realize emptiness. So I'm not sure, you might have heard something else before, but
perhaps I'm thinking of someone who is not on the bodhisattva path, say a Shravaka who realizes emptiness, someone on the Shravaka path, according to Prasangika, and then must enter into the bodhisattva path, that they've realized emptiness already, and that it can be an impediment of sorts.
Well, I don't believe that that's considered to be an impediment for them. What is the impediment is that they strove for a long time to achieve nirvana for themselves. So they had, although they had compassion, even immeasurable compassion, they didn't have the great compassion that was willing to put up with the discomfort of staying in cyclic existence for the benefit of sentient beings. So once they've achieved nirvana and they are awakened by the Buddhas, they do have a head start in that they've realized emptiness. And you would think that then they might be able to, because they've realized emptiness, they might be able to practice the equalizing and exchanging self and others more quickly, but it's not the case. As you say, it's because of the imprint of that self-cherishing is the main obstacle there, not that they have realized emptiness. The emptiness you might think would be an advantage for them, but because there's still that strong self-cherishing that they have to overcome, it takes them a longer time.
I think that's what I was thinking of. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And Anne, did you have a question? You were up? No?
Yeah, I was just, thank you, Venerable, so much. I was just wondering, is there what you just described of the two different practices, and one being for sharp faculty, those of sharp faculty, and one being for those of dull faculty, is that just plainly cited in a text somewhere that this is?
Yeah, usually in the texts on bodhicitta, Lama Tsongkhapa in his Lanrim Chemo made, what do they call it? The 11-round meditation on bodhicitta, where he combined the 7-point and the 11 and the equalizing self and others. But generally, it's well recognized that in fact, even there are some sutra references, not just from Maitreya in general, that talk about the 7 points of cause and effect. When we say 7 points of cause and effect, it means 6 causes and the 7th meaning bodhicitta, the effect, and equalizing and exchanging self and others. Those are the 2 main methods that have come down to us to develop bodhicitta. So Lama Tsongkhapa sort of made an amalgamation of those 2 methods in a way called the 7-round, because it's said that even if you are trying to develop bodhicitta, you might put a lot of your effort, first of all, on the 7 points of cause and effect. And then when you reach some kind of, things aren't moving along, then switch over to equalizing self and others, equalizing and exchanging self and others. What that means is, first, on the basis of realizing the equality with other sentient beings, that all sentient beings want to be happy, want to be free from suffering, and realizing, having an insight into emptiness, developing the thought to exchange your cherishing, rather than cherishing the self and ignoring others, you cherish others to the exclusion of the self that you had, So this doesn't mean that a fully fledged bodhisattva would completely ignore oneself. One has to keep one's aggregates, healthy. One needs resources and so forth, but one puts the emphasis on cherishing others more than oneself. Shankar, you have an observation.
Observation and a question. I guess in response to Anne's question, I think in Pabongka Rinpoche's text, it does talk specifically about dull faculties and sharper faculties for the 2 methods. But in any case, my question was that when you said, the quicker way of developing bodhicitta, with equalizing, exchanging self and others, and you said must have realization of emptiness. Is that a direct realization of emptiness on the path of seeing, or indirect?
No,
right. Okay.
No.
I mean,
you can realize emptiness even before entering into the path. That means you have, with logical reasoning, like we talked about in the previous course, the practice of emptiness, one can have a realization of the emptiness of the person and a realization of the emptiness of phenomena, which is the conceptual realization. You have we talked about, some questions came up before about what it was like, the space-like realization of emptiness. What was that like, and so forth. You even proffered some other people's opinions about that. So you can realize emptiness, to have a realization of emptiness, insight into emptiness, means to go beyond faith, to go beyond correct belief or assumption that it's true, to actually have used logical reasoning to prove it. And we might have some glimpses of that sometime. What one has to do then is to elongate those glimpses into moments and longer periods where you can remain in single-pointed concentration on the space-like emptiness. That's realization. That can take place even before entering the path. And that's what's referred to here when it's talking about these three special causes of bodhisattvas. Non-dual awareness means that realization of emptiness. And so, although not all bodhisattvas will have realized emptiness before they achieve bodhicitta, spontaneous bodhicitta, those of sharper faculty will. They have realized emptiness, non-dual awareness, and on the basis of that, they are able to practice the equalization and exchange of self and others. Okay? Okay. So we've had in the past, what I've done is I stopped a little bit earlier and then had dedication and then had questions. I a little bit cheated those who wanted to get out early by having the questions first. So we'll do a dedication prayers, long life prayers, and then I will leave you and into the capable hands of the discussion groups for those that have some more questions. Any last thing before I go? Before we say dedication? Shankar.
Oh, I just wanted to mention, if people could stick around once Venerable George leaves, just for like 5 seconds, please. Because something that is not meant for Venable's ears.
I see. I can't listen. Okay, you'll have to watch. Make sure I live. Okay, so Sheila, would you be kind enough to put up our dedication prayers? Gewadi nyurdu dag Lama sange drubyurne droa chikyang malupa de sala kupasho. Due to these merits, wait. Due to these virtues, that means the virtuous karma that I've created, gewadi, nirdudag means quickly, may I, dak means I, may I quickly, lama sange drubyurne, may I achieve the state of a guru Buddha. That means to become a Buddha in the sense of, someone who's like a Lama, who is able to teach others. And having done so, droa chikyang malupa, for each and every migrating being, droa means migrators, de sala kopasha, set them into that very same state. And the next, Changchu Semcho Rimboche Make Panam Kegyuchi Kepa Nyamba Me Bayan Gune Gongtu Belwashu. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen already not diminish, but increase more and more. And the long life prayer for Lama Zopa. You who uphold the Munis, remember our Muni means short for Shakyamuni. You who uphold the Munis' moral code, serving as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine. masterfully accomplishing magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And to our spiritual guides in general, eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, through whose eyes we can understand all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateway for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means, moved by love, illuminating spiritual friends, please live a long and stable life. So thank you. Thanks for your participation, your good humor, and your patience in letting me babble on. I will hopefully see you next week. Please read ahead and go over the material that we have gone over. I'm going to ask in some of these coming classes questions about what we've done in the past, and you don't want to sound like a total ignoramus at that time. So,
one of all faculties.
So good to see all of you. Donnie's came up, her picture came up with her cat, and Diana is there also. So take care. See you next